The question is, do they go interior first or edge first? I think it's fair to assume they're going to go defensive line. They don't really want to draft offensive line early. They say Trent Williams is coming back. I don't think they really want to draft offensive tackles. They had some bad experiences there. I mean, most of them are just so overmatched by defensive ends anyway. I mean, how many good offensive tackles are there really in the NFL? Guys who don't get flagged every game for holding. So let's think it through. They could take a defensive tackle. Those guys are hard to find. Big dudes who are good against the pass and the run. The top defensive tackles in this draft are Walter Nolan and Mason Graham, who are both outstanding prospects, 3-down players. But I think they would get exposed on the 49ers because of the wide 9 defense. And let me just put it this way. This is no knock on them at all. I think they're great prospects. I think Aaron Donald in his prime would get exposed on the 49ers in their wide 9 defense. And if you disagree with me, I guess we just have a fundamental disagreement. But in a wide 9, when you move those defensive ends outside the tight end and those defensive tackles, there's so much space between those players. If you're 285, you're going to get moved around by double teams all day in the run game. You could split some of them sometimes. Aaron Donald, the greatest player ever, arguably one of them. I mean, even in a wide 9, would find a few opportunities to make some plays and split some double teams. But like overall, it would be a horrible fit for him. He'd complain, and the defensive coordinator would get fired, and they'd bring in a 5-man front because that's what he fits. That's what he always played in. That's what Justin Smith played in as a defensive tackle for the 49ers. I don't think Justin Smith would have been a good fit in the wide 9 because in the wide 9, there's so much space. I asked John Lynch, what are you looking for? He said, Grant, it's a good question because there's so much space between the players, right? To me, you need space eaters. Big freaking dudes. Javon Hargrave, not a space eater. You know who were space eaters? Buckner and Armstead. 6'7", 6'8", guys who have long arms, who can two-gap if necessary. Because think about it. If you're going to play 2 deep safeties, that means you have 7 in the box. That means you're outnumbered. That means one of those players in the box needs to play 2 gaps. One of them. And when Buckner and Armstead were here, it could be either one. They could take turns on it on different plays. Now, there's no 2-gapper in the 49ers front 7, which is one reason their run defense is so awful. Kinlaw was supposed to be in that mold. 6'5", 320, long arms. I mean, he has the frame. He could be that space eater in the wide 9, but he had injury issues. I mean, his knee was an issue when they drafted him. He couldn't really anchor as a result. You watched him. He would try to sort of anchor on his one leg that was healthy. I mean, what was he supposed to do? It was just a poor medical evaluation, but that's sort of the prototype of what they're looking for. So if they can find that guy in round 1, okay. Maybe it's Derek Harmon who went to Oregon. Maybe another tall, big body, long arm guy who can 2-gap sometimes is the pick there. But I'm kind of thinking they're going to lean towards the edge rusher in round 1. And I don't really know why. I just feel like if it's not Graham or Nolan are worth that 11th pick, but I don't know if they fit the Niners defense for better or worse. So if the Niners take a different D tackle in round 1, is it a reach to take Kenneth Grant there or Derek Harmon? Maybe. If they feel the top 2 D tackles in the draft aren't the best scheme fits for them because they're not space eaters and they would get moved around like they have to learn from the Hargrave experience, right? What do they learn from the Hargrave experience? Just getting a menace of an interior pass rusher who can win one-on-one matchups and is nearly impossible to block one-on-one and gives you a real advantage on pass rushing downs isn't necessarily an impact player on this defense. I mean, I think Hargrave did he do more bad than good? Or was he just a wash? So they got to learn from that experience and not bring in the next Hargrave. So that's why I'd be nervous about any sub 300-pound defensive tackle who's, 6'2", 6'3". There's exceptions, but I wouldn't want to do that. So let's go edge rusher in round one. Let's say edge rusher in round one, defensive tackle in round two. You could get a space eater in round two. Round one, Abdul Carter's the best, but he's going to go maybe with the top pick. Then you got Jalen Walker from Georgia. And, you know, I've been hanging out with Brooks, who covers the Georgia football team on SI. And Brooks Austin, you should check him out. Brooks Austin covers Georgia football for on SI, and I was asking him a lot about their players because he knows them. Jalen Walker, this is what he says about Jalen Walker. Son of a coach, will be a coach one day, football guy, brilliant football mind. So right away, he fits what the Niners look for. Robert Saleh would geek out talking to him about football. And if you're committed to using him in two positions, then he'd be a good pick. But to move him to one position full time, he's not necessarily a great inside linebacker, although he's built like one. And he's not necessarily a great edge rusher, although he plays that sometimes. So if you want to say he's this or that, he's gonna replace Greenlaw, he's gonna replace Leonard Floyd. He's kind of a unique player who needs to do a little bit of both, and his versatility is what makes him good. I don't think the Niners are going to take him. The other Georgia edge rusher might be more up their alley, Mykel Williams. Jalen Walker, to be like a good run defender, would need to be playing inside linebacker. He couldn't be a good run defender as a defensive end. Mykel Williams is 6'5", 260 with long arms. Mykel Williams is a phenomenal run defender on the end. He's the best edge run defender in the class. And the Niners haven't really had, he'd be a better edged run defender than Nick Bosa. Right off the bat. So he has a prototypical size, great on first and second down, and he was a starter as a freshman on the best team in the country, the national champion Georgia Bulldogs. So was Ladd McConkey. So was Brock Bowers. This is a guy with serious pedigree who was playing at the highest level his first year in college. And it's like, well, he didn't have the sack numbers. It never had more than 5 sacks in a season. But that's true of every defensive lineman who goes to Georgia. And those guys are all really freaking good in the NFL. In addition, Mykel in particular was playing a lot of 4-eye technique, which means just inside the offensive tackle. Yeah, that's almost like a 3-4 defensive tackle. He was playing a lot at Georgia, according to Brooks Austin. And if he could hold up doing that, like playing 4-eye technique at 260 pounds, that's why I compare him to Aldon Smith. He doesn't have the sack numbers that Aldon Smith had in college, but Aldon Smith also played some defensive tackle at Missouri. Maybe you don't remember the Aldon Smith film, but that was my first year covering the team. He was that size. He could play with his hand in the dirt, D end or D tackle, and he was really good against the run and violent. And that's kind of what Mykel Williams reminds me of. So that might be I don't really see anything wrong with that pick. The other one that's interesting is James Pierce Jr., the edge rusher from Tennessee. He's 6'5", 245. So he's a full 15 pounds lighter than Mykel Williams. Not going to be the run defender that Mykel Williams is, but he ran a 4.47. It's incredible. He moves like a wide receiver. He's 6'5", 245. He ran a 4.47. Tight ends won't be doing that. He moves like a freaking wide receiver, and he had big time sack production in college. I could absolutely see the Niners taking James Pierce Jr. With the 11th pick if he's there, because Robert Saleh just a couple of years ago when he was with the Jets took Will McDonald the 4th with the 15th pick, and he's like 239 pounds. This guy's better than Will McDonald the 4th. So if Robert Saleh has a big say on who they take on defense, particularly in the first round, I could see them taking one of those two guys, one of the DNs. And I don't know if this really factors in, but I think the Niners should have some self-awareness that they've tried drafting defensive tackle. They've made some very large investments in the defensive tackle position since John and Kyle have been here. They drafted Solomon Thomas in round 1. They drafted Javon Kinlaw in round 1. They signed Javon Hargrave to a 4-year, $184 million deal. None of those moves worked out. So they're 0 for 3 in big swings. 3 big swings, 3 big misses at the defensive tackle position. Maybe that's enough. Maybe from now on, you look for defensive tackles in later rounds because, again, you run this funky, weird system, and a lot of good D tackles aren't going to fit it. So if you're looking for space eaters, and that's most, I mean, to me, in this system, run defense at defensive tackle is more important than pass rush because if you can't stop the run, if you can't anchor, if you can't eat up double teams, if you don't demand a double team and then eat it up, you're not stopping the run. And if you're not stopping the run, you're not rushing the quarterback and you're losing. So if you really need space eaters, take that dude in round 2. Who's the guy? Hold on. I should know these. Who's the dude from Ohio State, the defensive tackle? I'm going to get his name. Tyleek, which is a good name, but I forget his last name. CBS. Help me out. His name is Tyleek Williams. He's 6'3", 327. There's a space eater. Kenneth Grant, 6'3", 339. There's a space eater. I mean, you need him to be able to push the pocket as well. And if you want more dynamic 3-technique interior pass rushers, then get rid of the fucking wide 9. How about that? But all due respect, Robert Saleh likes it. I respect Robert Saleh. I'll roll with him. This is what you want to do, then you got to make it work.